Hi there, Cancer. Thank you for joining me for your year 2015 forecast. This year begins with a big change as Saturn has relocated at the very end of last year into a new zone, one which I think you'll be quite relieved to get into, because over the last 2 years it has been working its way through your sector of joys. But when Saturn moves through this area, there isn't necessarily a lot of joy going on. It's all about restriction. And when it comes to your creative talents, you've probably had to work incredibly hard to pump across your ideas during that time. But this year, as the new year begins, the focus is very much on the more practical side of life, delivering on your ideas in terms of the details. And organisation is something that many Cancerians have a natural gift for. So this is your chance to start to make sure that the nitty-gritty of what you're trying to do starts to shape up as you wish. It's also an opportunity to enter this new year, and as you make your New Year's resolutions, to think seriously about your health, fitness and dietary regimes. And if there are some areas that you can improve upon, then do look at this as quickly as possible. If you're someone who's quite virtuous and conscientious in these areas already, you may find yourself thinking more carefully about the type of work you do. And part of the reason for this, because the general relating environment when it comes to your professional instincts remains potentially quite unsettled. There is one absolutely superb influence at the start of this year, a conjunction between Venus and Mercury, which can see one relationship go from strength to strength in 2015. It can be almost a magical, intuitive connection you have with one person, and you can work enormously collaboratively together. But ironically, there could be one other individual that you encounter this year, or it could be an organisation that you have to deal with that it seems to you is just so much hard work. And part of the reason for this, in the first 5 and last 2 months of the year, is a square, a right angle between Uranus, the planet of rebellion and individuality, which is in the most prominent part of your horoscope, your solar midheaven, squaring up with Pluto, the tiny entity which has been influencing your interactions with others hugely over the last 6 or 7 years. And if there does seem to be someone that you encounter on a daily basis who seems overbearing, very demanding, wants everything their own way, it could be something that sees you wanting to do something that's much freer and enables you to have the kind of connections on an everyday basis which makes you feel really at peace with the world. Unfortunately, some of the things that you encounter may be forced upon you because the world itself is changing. And we know that big business, big organisations are always readjusting the way that they work. And it's possible that you could get caught up in this kind of scenario. And this can start to make your professional world seem very, very uncertain. And the more uncertainty there is, the more uncertain and restless you can feel. And you may even at times start to feel quite rebellious yourself, even if that's not normally your instinct. But there is one other aspect at the start of this year which actually can be very positive. It's an opposition between Jupiter and Mars, suggesting that your appetite for advancement in terms of being an entrepreneur or a risk taker when it comes to making the most of your resources is certainly going to be turned up to max. Now this is one of those aspects which does have a downside, and you really shouldn't bet the kitchen sink on anything you haven't really done your research on. But equally, if you have and you feel that you're taking a calculated risk, you might end up the year quite a lot better off than the way you started. There can also be a dynamic towards a great attraction to someone this year, an electric, almost magnetic attraction to someone who tends to challenge you in some ways. They're big, they're bold, they may even be a bit brash, but there's something about them that can make your heart race that much quicker. Now with Saturn making its way through Sagittarius in the early parts of this year, it does start to go into a retrograde in March. And March is also an important month for a solar eclipse in your sector of your future direction in life. And over the next 6 months, it is going to be important to understand that as much as you may have certain goals and aspirations, how these feed into your home life is going to be very important too. The reason for this, Cancer, is the fact that there is a lunar eclipse on the 4th of April, which is a very restless one. It sees an opposition between the sign of Libra and also Uranus in the part of your scope that's to do with your worldly interactions. So this points towards some hope or aspiration you have may not necessarily go exactly to plan because you're trying to deal with the turbulences or the unsettlement that can happen either at home or at work, especially if something's out of balance, out of sync, perhaps around your emotional hopes. If you're too much up in your head when it comes to your wishes for the future and your goals, you need to tune back into what makes you you. Don't get out of touch with your needs in terms of your everyday support structure and network. That's very, very important. It's all very well being idealistic, but you also need to stay safe. Now, once Saturn does move back into Scorpio, yes, it retreats back into Scorpio in mid-June, the issue comes back much more into the fore about the creative talents you have and a romantic relationship. And for 3 months, you may find yourself having to firefight a little bit. But a big change occurs on the 11th of August, which can certainly bring a smile to your face. As Jupiter moves out of an area where it may have given you more finance, but it moves into an area which is more about your mind, your ideas. And if you are a communicator and you want to connect with other people more effectively, this certainly can be a key feature of the following 12 months, except for the month of September, when there is confusion writ right through it. It really could be a tricky time. There's also going to be another solar eclipse, which is emphasizing the need for you to be conscious of firm foundations and even taking a little bit of a pause around some of your big hopes to just reorientate yourself to what's really important in your life, especially if the bigger ideas you have are not quite going as quickly as you would like. Once you do that, you can start to get much more back in trim. And in fact, October could turn out to be one of the most thrilling months of the year, packed full of some incredibly important conversations, perhaps with one person in particular, not necessarily romantically, but where there can be a real meeting of minds, which can be hugely important for you, especially if the desire to break out of that straitjacket which keeps connecting you to a situation that you seem to have no control over, that continues to get shook up all through the year, while October could turn out to be a fantastically important month. But with Saturn moving back in September into your sector of organisation, it does get blighted by Neptune in the last couple of months of this year. And it is important because of this just to be aware of what Neptune's influence is. Neptune's in the part of your horoscope to do with the truth, but Neptune isn't a planet which is very good when it comes to neat reality in terms of facts and figures. And how you're seeing life may be very different to how someone else is across those couple of months. So you just need to be mindful of that, because as Pluto and Uranus start to square up and go into this squabble again in the last couple of months of the year, it is possible that you could encounter someone who's more powerful than you, and their actions can have a major impact on you, and therefore a quite deflating one as well. So sometimes you're going to have to need to be conscious of the battles that can be fought. And part of that is understanding your need for control, which can come to the fore from time to time. You can be the most caring, most nurturing members of the zodiac, but you do also like your own way. Most of us do, but for you it's an elemental thing. It's to do with your sense of protection and security. But you're not going to get all of your own way this year. There are going to be compromises to be made, and sometimes you're going to have to learn to be more self-sacrificing. Yes, even you. And when it comes to work or how you earn a living, providing some kind of service which is practical, tangible, could be something which really gets you sparked up and excited, especially if self-employment appeals. But it is relationships that I think are at the heart of this year, forged in part by that solar return at the very start of the year. And there can be that one amazing relationship, but also a challenging one or a challenging environment that you have to encounter too, where diplomacy and listening skills are going to be very important to your progress. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Thank you for joining me. Good luck and goodbye for now.